Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioners, remember to activate your mic if you want to be heard. We are here to adopt the agenda for today's staff. Are there any changes to the agenda? There are none. So may I have a motion to approve the agenda? Commissioner Hens moves, Vice Chair Campbell seconds. All in favor of approving the agenda, raise your right hand. It is unanimous. Good. You've all had a chance to see the minutes from our March 19th meeting. Are there any corrections or additions? If not, is somebody willing to move approval? Commissioner Hens moves approval. Commissioner Dubois seconds. Any discussion? All in favor of approval of the minutes, please raise your right hand. That's also unanimous. There is no unfinished business, so we will move to new business. The first item of which is a public hearing for consideration of an ordinance to amend Title 16 of the Municipal Code of the Town of Hilton Island, the Land Management Ordinance, to amend the Traffic Impact Analysis Plan requirements and traffic analysis standards to include the sections that you see listed there in your agenda. So I will now open up the public hearing on that topic and invite Ms. E. Lewick to come forward with a presentation.
Good afternoon, Missy Lewick, Director of Planning for the record. It is nice to be before the Planning Commission again, and especially during Heritage Week. Okay. So before us today, as the chair identified, we have an ordinance to consider an amendment, a text amendment to the code for an amendment to our traffic impact analysis plan requirements. And that is to make amendments for a variety of reasons. As you are well aware, this is part of our larger land management ordinance amendment project, of which is a priority that has been identified in our town council strategic action plan. And we have divided that project up into two parts, the priority amendment component and the full code overhaul. And of course, this amendment is part of the priority amendment set. We did have a workshop with town council last fall where we talked briefly about this potential amendment, and we heard from council in September that there was a desire to change the name from traffic impact analysis to transportation impact analysis to account for a multimodal approach, to reduce the threshold for when a traffic impact analysis plan is required, to include multimodal infrastructure, so such as bike paths, sidewalks, and transit in that analysis, to include more mitigation options, to clarify the subject matter approval by the town engineer instead of the LMO official, and to add unsignalized intersections, level of service, including mitigation requirements and the removal of discounting impacts due to background traffic, such as trips that are generated by previously existing development. So that's what we heard from council. And then we're just going to go through a summary of the amendment as well as some analysis, and then a table that we've identified with all of these amendments that show how we're addressing these topic areas of concern that council put before us with the actual amendment that's before you. So, of course, transportation planning is essential when we are reviewing development plans and while we are contemplating growth on our island. Ensuring that we have a safe and efficient transportation system on our island is part of what traffic impact analysis plans do for us. And as communities develop, new projects do introduce new traffic. That does have some impacts. It impacts roads, intersections, our multimodal infrastructure, such as our pathways and sidewalks and bike lanes and transit connections. And so without that proper assessment of that infrastructure, that transportation network, you can have congestion or safety hazards or strains on our system as a result. So, what we do and what we have in our code today are requirements for an analysis plan. Right now it's called a traffic impact analysis plan. And again, as I mentioned, the proposed amendment is changing the name to transportation. But that detailed study looks at projected volumes, travel patterns, and potential impacts on our roadway. And it helps us determine whether there are improvements such as expansions or signals or pedestrian enhancements that are required to maintain efficient and safe travel. So these studies are designed to assess how projects affect traffic, but we've identified that there are concerns about whether our current processes protect and address the needs of our residents and our community. So part of the priority amendments is to update its current requirements for these studies and for a more comprehensive approach that better reflects the transportation needs for everyone. That includes multimodal users, pedestrian, cyclists, transit users, et cetera. And then to summarize the proposed amendments, they will strengthen the requirements by expanding the scope of study beyond traffic to include multimodal infrastructure. Again, that's just a way of saying other users, all users of our transportation network, not just vehicles, but sidewalks, bike lanes, transit, et cetera. As well as reducing the threshold for when a traffic analysis plan is required or transportation analysis is required from 100 peak hour trips to 50 peak hour trips. Expanding the type of mitigation options that can be used to address transportation impacts, as well as, again, shifting that authority level to the town engineer from the LMO official, adding additional standards for unsignalized intersections, and eliminating exemptions that are associated with trips that are generated by previously existing development. So it is the intent that these updates will make our process more responsive to the community's needs and promote a more balanced and multimodal forward-thinking approach to transportation planning. And now I'll just go through some analysis that we conducted as a result of the changes that are proposed. Again, the plan is to, right now, we require a traffic impact analysis plan, and we have had a TIAP approved or required on a couple of developments. One was 147 residential unit subdivision on Jonesville Road, and then there also is a requirement for a transportation impact plan for 132 residential units that are proposed on Office Way. So those meet the current thresholds that are in the code. The analysis identifies that, again, we're talking about changing the name to reflect a more comprehensive approach from traffic to transportation, updating the LMO official to the town engineer, lowering that threshold from 100 to 50 peak hour trips. And there are two recent projects, as an example, that were not required to produce a traffic impact analysis plan. They were exempted due to the trips that were factored in for previously existing development, and that was a development, timeshare development on Folly Field, as well as a waterfront restaurant on Squire Pope that was near the Rowing and Sailing Center. So those were not required to conduct a traffic impact analysis plan based on our current code, but under the proposed new code and that threshold that's identified, they would have to provide a traffic impact analysis. Again, with the proposed changes, it would require an evaluation of that multimodal infrastructure, bike paths, sideways, and transit. It also requires that additional traffic circles and roundabouts are considered as well. And then I'll go through the table real briefly that summarizes the amendment that's before you today. Again, we talked about one of the issues or topics that was raised was to clarify the subject matter approval expert from the LMO official to the town engineer. That has been done in the proposed amendment. Again, changing the name from traffic impact analysis plan to transportation is carried out throughout the amendment set. And then reduce the threshold or that trigger point for when an analysis plan is required. And that takes it from 100 peak hour trips to 50. So lowering that threshold is what is proposed in the amendment set. Adding unsignalized intersections level of service standard and including additional mitigation options. So we had the Sea Pine Circle with a threshold of 150 seconds per vehicle during peak hour, and then are proposing adding other traffic circles or roundabouts to not exceed 55 seconds per vehicle during peak hour is what's proposed. And additionally, including that multimodal infrastructure, and in the amendment set, you'll see that there are requirements that are added to assess the impact of non-motorized travel based on a variety of standards that are identified, and it includes potential identification and study of improvements to pedestrian crossings, additional pedestrian and bicycle crossings, improvements to pedestrian signal intervals, signs and pavement markings, construction of additional sidewalks or non-motorized pathways, changes to the design and access to ease of non-motorized travel and reduce conflicts with vehicles from the public right-of-way, and other similar improvements to other transportation facilities. Additionally, one of the issues raised was to remove the discount of impacts to background traffic or trips that are generated by previously existing development. And you can see here that there was former language that's proposed to be struck where there was an exemption from development that replaced a vacant or occupied structure, and striking the language here that is related to how the proof of that former use is identified. So that removes those exemptions from the code requirements. Including more impact mitigation options is one of the topic areas. And in the amendment set, there are quite a few more mitigation options that are identified in the code. There's signal timing or phasing revisions, could be addition of signs, signals, markings, other measures, looking at improvements to signalized or unsignalized intersections that could include traffic circles or roundabouts, including improvements to traffic operations, pedestrian and bicycle operations, road widening, traffic signals, replacing a signal or an uncontrolled intersection with a roundabout, changes to the design of median crossovers, removal of changes to the number and location of design access points, so access management, additional signage, or other transportation-related safety improvements that could be identified by the town engineer. So quite a few more options that are listed for mitigation that are included within this amendment set. We do have a chapter within the code that handles nonconformities. This amendment would not create any nonconformities. And then also, as standard, all text amendments have to be evaluated against some standard review criteria. That criteria is listed here in items A through F. And in our assessment, we've identified how this particular amendment meets the required review criteria here in items 1 through 6. We believe it supports the comprehensive plan, which includes following strategy and tactic, maintain, evaluate, and update as needed traffic analysis standards to guide development in accordance with the existing and future needs of the town, that it's required due to increased traffic and congestion. It addresses a demonstrated community need to mitigate traffic impact and includes consideration of essential multimodal transportation options. It ensures overall transportation impacts and mitigation efforts are consistent with the intent of the LMO and results in safer and less congested streets and intersections, ensuring orderly development and transportation networks, and minimizes the overall impact of townwide development and resulting traffic. It is staff's recommendation that the Planning Commission consider this amendment and recommends approval. Are there any questions?
Any questions of Missy on her presentation? Commissioner Hens.
So thanks, Missy, for the requirements to make improvements. Mm-hmm. Are those borne by the developer? All those, that list of things that we could possibly do if the traffic impact analysis plan indicated that there was a need for enhancements, those costs would be borne strictly by the developer? Is that how that works?
Yeah, so if it was a required improvement, such as we've had some examples where for, one of the examples was a 147 unit subdivision off of Jonesville. That particular development was required to do a traffic impact analysis plan. One of the outcomes of that for mitigation was that they were required to install a right turn lane off of Jonesville Road, which the developer did install.
Other questions by commissioners or Commissioner Whaley?
Yeah, just to follow up on Commissioner Hen's question. So there seems to be a prescriptive list, but then that last one sort of gives the town engineer. So the town engineer can come up with another mitigation strategy outside of this list? Is that how I should read this?
Yeah, it offers some flexibility potentially if there's a solution, a mitigation option that's not specifically listed, but would benefit the community based on that particular development that's proposed. We do have representatives from engineering here today and could speak to, potential ideas of what that what that might mean. Yes, and if you would like, I could call up.
Yeah, I was just curious because it's a pretty long list. I have no idea if it's the right list or not. I'm not speaking to that. But then I saw the last item. I mean, what else could there be? Thank you.
Hi, Darren Shoemaker, engineering. I believe that the last item on the list is, it basically says other
Yes.
improvements as identified. So that's kind of a catch-all.
But I'm saying, like, you've got quite a long list. What's an example of something that would be outside the list that you hadn't included as, geometric improvements, pavement marking revisions? I mean,
There's some limitations to the degree of capital improvements, road construction that can be implemented, limitations on lanes. The list used to be, and still is, very restrictive. It basically says acceptable mitigation will include signal timing revisions, signal phasing revisions, adding a turn lane as long as you don't exceed the number of lanes. It was very limiting, and the intent of the new list is to offer developers a lot more flexibility, not only toward traffic and roadway related improvements, but also multimodal improvements.
okay, thank you.
Other commissioner questions or comments? Okay.
I have one other.
more?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Missy, when you look at the examples of where these traffic analysis work has to be done, you talked about looking backwards and not taking into account, in the past, did not take into account existing traffic. But when you have big projects that we know that are coming up on the north end, and they may have had their own project analysis done or traffic impact analysis done. I'm thinking particularly of on North Point and the Novant properties, because we're going to have maybe 500, 600, 700 cars coming up through that whole area at the north end. So does the engineers not only look at the development that's being assessed for its own purposes and what's already there, but what is clearly been approved for the future down the road or near it? So you follow what I'm saying? So is that clear in the code that the engineer should be looking at the current applicant, the existing conditions, and the known future conditions that are not in place yet?
Darren, I know that you are the reviewer of a lot of our traffic impact analysis plans. Can you walk through just you receive a plan, the assessment of how you evaluate that plan, and I think that will get to the root of Ms. Whaley's question. And then I think she really wants to know, by eliminating that discount of prior traffic, is there an impact there or something that we should be considering?
Right, and also, if I have applicant A, who's in the process of being permitted, but you had applicant C and D that were permitted 2 months or 6 months ago, and they already have huge footprints, are they taken into account even though they have not broken ground?
Yes, they are. If it's already permitted, it is a given that that is considered as being existing rather than proposed and permitted development as within the traffic impact study. And there's also language in the amendments that gives the town engineer the authority to direct the preparer of the traffic impact analysis plan to consider any proposed development that is not permitted as well.
And another piece of your question pertains to some workforce housing developments. And I wanted to point out that the threshold for affordable housing is not proposed to be changed. That threshold that requires a traffic or transportation impact analysis plan is 200 peak hour trips, and there is no change that's proposed with this amendment to that particular threshold. So if those two particular projects that you're identifying are both affordable housing projects, then the threshold would remain at 200 peak hour trips.
Other commissioners, questions? If not, we will open this up now to the public. Is there anybody here from the public who would like to speak to you? Yes, sir, please come forward. If you could give us your name for the record and understand that you'll have 3 minutes.
Sure, thanks.
Great.
I won't take 3 minutes.
That's fine.
Gene Zepfel, I live in Hilton Head Plantation. I was here last month when we talked about the North Point development. I'd like to understand why a workforce housing development has an exemption. It has zero impact on the actual traffic, whether it's a workforce development or not. So why are they getting an exemption? Is it to keep costs down? If that's the case, then we're paying the price of more traffic without any kind of additional modifications to the infrastructure because of this exemption. I would just like to understand that. Second part of my question is, when is this going to be implemented? If you approve it today, for instance, does it cover anything submitted day forward, or does it go back, anything in the pipeline? Just if someone could address that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Mr. Babel.
Good afternoon. For the record, I'm Frank Babel, I'm the bike guy. I think you covered a lot of the what, why, and how in this thing, a lot of the how. One thing I miss is people. South Carolina is a complete streets community. It has a policy about complete streets for the whole state. And so does Beaufort County, and so does Hilton Head Island. For the record, complete streets is a transportation policy and design approach that requires streets to be planned, designed, and operated and maintained to enable safe, convenient, and comfortable travel and access for users of all ages and abilities, regardless of their mode of transportation. It's a philosophy. It's not the details, because you'll never get all the details because it changes and technology will changes. It's a philosophy of how you approach these designs. And it's apparently the policy of the South Carolina SCDOT of Beaufort County, and it's on our books. So complete streets is something that, I mean, this is a step forward. Congratulations. We're really positive about the word transportation versus traffic. But complete streets seems to be an undercurrent that doesn't seem to be pervasive throughout this document. Complete streets is a very important thing. It's a philosophy that people have to have when they approach these design things, as opposed to a book over here. They have to figure out how to get people across the streets safely, whether they're handicapped, on bikes, in cars, trolley, it doesn't matter. That's a complete streets philosophy. And that's supposedly what we're following. That's what the state says we should be following. That's what the county says we should be following. Are we following that? Is it in the book? Is it in this new LMO? I didn't see it. I don't know. Maybe it's the wrong place for it. But I don't want to keep on standing up here and talk about complete streets. I've been talking about them for 10 years. Think about it, please. Thank you.
You, sir. Anybody else would like to talk with us today on this topic? Seeing no one else, we will close the public hearing and come back to the commission for discussion. Did you have anything to add before we take this up, Missy? No.
I would just like to, if I may,
Yes.
address the questions that were asked. One of the questions was, why is there a different threshold for affordable housing? I was not part of the original drafting of this language that had the two different thresholds. Existing language is 100 peak hour trips for development and then 200 if it's affordable. However, what we did discuss was, should we amend the threshold for the 200 peak hour trips for affordable and during the priority set? And the discussion was, we're going to comprehensively look at our workforce housing policies in the full code overhaul, and we felt that this criteria that is attached to that for this requirement would be part of that comprehensive assessment. So it will be looked at again further, as will this particular piece of code and all of the code in the full code overhaul assessment. So we will look at that again. And the other question was about when will this be effective? And if the Planning Commission moves this forward today, then it would move next to a council of committee and then 2 readings of council. I would expect this to be reviewed and approved and effective in the latter part of the summer months.
So as you saw in the written report, Commissioners, we have 3 options today to recommend this to Town Council, to recommend approval with conditions, or to recommend denial. So Commissioner Loba.
I will make a motion that we recommend approval to council for the text amendment and move it forward.
You have a second from Commissioner Hens. Okay, discussion. Yes, Commissioner Whaley?
I think this is directed to Missy again. Missy, when they look at the full comprehensive plan, you probably told us this 100 times and it's gone in one ear and out the other. When is that going to happen? What's the timeline for that?
For full code?
Yeah.
There are, the first 5 chapters are being drafted now. The deliverable schedule that we received, unless there are some delays, but that we should at least have a draft of the full code delivered by the end of August. So it is currently being written now, and will be under review with module deliverables throughout the summer months.
Okay, and so what we talked about would be sort of
Yes.
thrown out in August sometime for people to look at.
Yeah, so I mean, that's when we're getting those deliverables. We are working on creating a potential task force, an LMO task force as well. But as you're aware, the Planning Commission is going to be one of the bodies that we report out to. We're looking at the makeup of that particular task force with representatives from various boards. And so there will be a lot of connections with multiple appointed boards of the town throughout that review period. And then, of course, our Gullah Geechee Task Force is a significant body that we intended to report out to on the full code as it is developed.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? We have a motion on the floor to recommend approval to Town Council, and it's been seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. It is 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll next move on to a public hearing request regarding a street naming that you can see on your agenda there. And I will also start by opening the public hearing on that topic and then invite Johaida to give us her report.
All right, so Johaida Pfister, Deputy Fire Chief. I am going to let Kathleen, our 911 Communications Manager, present today, but I will be available for questions as well.
Yes, hello, very good to be with you all today. I am here to present the staff report to recommend adopting the name Red Fox Manor for a new access easement. This is on behalf of Susanna Legree on 7 Outlaw Road, who would like to name this access easement as part of developing dwelling units on this parcel. Red Fox Manor will provide direct access to 3 homes on the parcel, but we have to plan for this access easement to provide access for at least 3 more homes. And that's because the zoning in the area allows up to 16 dwelling units per acre. And each of these parcels is a little less than a 1/4 acre. So that's 3 3 dwelling units per parcel. Red Fox Manor was chosen as the new street name. The red fox is a species native to South Carolina, known for its adaptability and cleverness. And it was one of the names chosen by the applicant. So we are supporting the applicant's choice here. You can see here that this is the subject property highlighted. The new access easement will be off of Outlaw Road. And you can see the number 9 Outlaw Road directly behind the subject property. That is where in the future there could be an additional 3 dwelling units possibly. And here's a little clearer picture. And here's the plan with the proposed homes on it, and it also shows the access easement on the right side.
Could you go back to the back?
Sure.
Where's the proposed new road?
So the proposed new road, yeah, maybe you can, yeah.
So it comes from here and goes back here. So the developed part will be at the front of number 7 now, but we know that number 9 can be developed as well and would then be served off of that also.
You all received the staff report with the description of the criteria. The criteria has been met, and we recommend that you adopt the name of Red Fox Manor. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions of Kathleen? Commissioner Hens?
I would just like to commend you for not naming it Outlaw Court, but coming up with a new
I thought
name.
of you when it came through.
That's why I had to say that.
Anything else?
Okay, what's your pleasure? Commissioner Lobaugh moves to approve the Red Fox Manor name, seconded by Vice Chair Campbell. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. It is 7-0. Thank you. It is now time to hear our annual traffic monitoring and evaluation report that will be given to us by Darren Shoemaker. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the commission. It is an honor to appear before you again. I actually presented this report to the Planning Commission for 22 consecutive years, from 2000 to 2022, until last year, when Mr. Jim Iwaniki prepared the report and did the presentation. Mr. Iwaniki is not with the town any longer, so I've been brought back for an encore this year. It's very good to be here and to be able to give this presentation to you. I have 18 slides after this title slide, and I'm going to try to spend no more than a minute on each side. In the interest of brevity, try to limit the presentation to 15 minutes or so. What does the LMO say needs to be in the annual traffic monitoring and evaluation report? It requires that a summary of weekday morning and afternoon turning movement counts for each signal, and Sea Pine Circle during certain years, every 5 years to be exact, be included in the report. That's in Appendix A. I would like to point out that the LMO defines peak hour as being the peak volume hour between 7 and 9 a.m. on a weekday, a typical weekday for the morning peak hour, and between 4 and 6 p.m. In the afternoon on a typical weekday for the afternoon peak hour. Therefore, all of the turning movement counts that are in Appendix A of the report are collected in 15-minute increments, and the peak hour is isolated from within those 2 morning hours and the 2 afternoon peak hours. The LMO requires that turning movement counts for Sea Pine Circle be included in years that are evenly divisible by 5. For many years now, we've been doing it every 2 years instead of every 5, as well as any additional years that are evenly divisible by 5 to meet the requirements of the LMO. It requires a summary of bidirectional 24-hour demands, strategic locations on major arterials throughout the town, historical trends for the previous 5-year period. I would like to highlight that requirement and point out that since this report is for conditions in July of 2024, 5 years previous was summer of 2019, the summer prior to the pandemic. So in many instances, this report offers comparisons between existing traffic counted in July of 2024 and pre-pandemic conditions. The LMO requires that all of our signalized intersections and Sea Circle during certain years be analyzed according to a specified methodology, the results reported in the annual traffic report, and comparisons be made with the operational goals outlined in the LMO, of which there are 2. One of the goals is based on average delay per vehicle, and the other goal is based on a percentage of the theoretical intersection capacity that's being utilized by existing traffic. And lastly, the LMO requires that any intersections found out of compliance, that the report contain recommendations to bring them back into compliance. In Appendix A, you have a variety of turning movement counts, morning and afternoon, peak hour turning movement counts for all of our signals and Sea Circle. I'll point out that in addition to the LMO definitions of the morning peak hour and the afternoon peak hour, we have historically also isolated a midday peak hour at Sea Circle in recognition of the fact that generally speaking, there's not a whole lot going on down there during the traditional morning rush hour, and conversely, people are very concerned about conditions at lunch hour on a typical weekday down at Sea Circle. You'll note that on these diagrams for William Hilton Parkway, off island is always to the right, and toward Sea Circle on island is always to the left. That's because William Hilton Parkway corkscrews around the island, doesn't conform to conventions as far as your cardinal directions, and for purposes of consistency, we always have off island shown to the right. That puts north at the bottom for a number of the North Island intersections, but I did want to highlight that consistency. The comparable figures collected last year in 2023 are shown in parentheses. The percentage change rounded to the nearest whole percent is shown for each individual movement, save for low volume movements. We had 5 this year and 10 this year. We don't want to show you a 100% increase on that particular movement. And the percentage change for the intersection as a whole is shown in the center of the diagram, rounded to the nearest 1/10 of 1%. Also, adjacent to each approach, you have bike and ped counts shown on all of the diagrams.
Before you leave that diagram, did you have the percentage of capacity of the intersection on that?
No, those are just patently counts, just count information only. Table 1 on page 8 of your report. I mentioned that we collect 24-hour volumes at strategic locations on our major arterials. Those are bidirectional volumes. We have 10 strategic locations on major arterials, of which 5 of them are on William Hilton Parkway, 2 are on the Cross Island Parkway, 1 is on Palmetto Bay Road, and 1 is on Pope Avenue. That only adds up to 9. There's actually 6 on William Hilton Parkway. Apologize for that. When you, and I need to highlight that we count these bi-directional demands for 3 consecutive typical weekdays, from a Tuesday to a Thursday. So we have, these are averages based on 3 consecutive days, 72 hours of data. And when you look at the numbers that we counted in July of 2024, you'll note that this number right here, that is the higher than any of the other numbers you see for previous years on there. That's because that's the highest number that we have ever counted as a part of this annual effort. Previously, the peak was collected in 2021, the summer following the onset of the pandemic. Based on the numbers in this table, the numbers are 1.1% higher than they were counted in 2023. And if you go back 5 years, they're about 6% higher than 5 years ago, which equates to an average rate of increase of 1.1% over the last 5 years. I would bring to your attention, look at the general positive rates of increase on the south end of the island and in the entry corridor, and the negative rates of decrease on William Hilton Parkway on the north end. That is generally felt to be a result of the shift in traffic associated with the removal of the toll plaza on the Cross Island Parkway. And a map showing where these counts were taken is included in Appendix B of your report. Prior to the cessation of toll collections on the Cross Island Parkway, we traditionally found that about traffic moving on and off the island, about more than 2/3 of it, 68.5%, selected William Hilton Parkway, whereas less than 1/3, 31.5%, selected the Cross Island Parkway as their preferred route. Here in July of 2024, 3 years after the end of toll collections on the Cross Island Parkway, there is still a strong preference for William Hilton Parkway over the Cross Island Parkway, but it's much more balanced, with about 61.5% selecting William Hilton Parkway and 38.5% selecting the Cross Island Parkway. This shift in the split between the two facilities of 7%, however, equates to a 26% increase in demand on the Cross Island Parkway. And this split has been fairly stable for the past few years. It seems to have set in and stabilized at 61.5% versus 38.5% on the Cross Island Parkway. Table 3 on pages 10 and 11 of your report summarizes the peak morning and afternoon demand at all of our signals, as well as Sea-Pine Circle. Compared with 2023, we registered a 0.5% increase in morning peak hour demand at all of our signals in aggregate, and a 1.1% increase with all of our signals and Sea-Pine Circle in aggregate during the afternoon peak hour. I would again bring your attention to the fact that unlike the numbers, the daily 24-hour numbers I just showed you for Table 1, look at all the increases on the north end for both the morning and the afternoon peak hour, and all the decreases on the south end during the morning and afternoon peak hour. The takeaway being that peak hour demands are generally lower on the south end, where they're higher on the north end compared with last year. But when you look at 24-hour demands, the reverse is true. Numbers are lower on the north end and higher on the south end. And I would suggest to you that that is a function of the frequency with which our guests and visitors use the Cross Island Parkway and visit the south end, they often avoid your typical rush hours, whereas your commuters, they're commuting back and forth to the island on a daily basis. They're often traveling in that peak hour and not as prone to use the Cross Island Parkway as they are William Hilton Parkway. Table 4 on page 12 is a summary of bike and ped crossing demands. I would bring to your attention that we were about 9% lower than what we counted the year before, but I want to bring to your attention this number right here on the third row from the bottom. That's South Forest Beach Drive pedestrian signal. A lot of people cross there. That has a lot of weight in these numbers, and about 2/3 of the decline that you see in the numbers this year versus last year is right here. That count there at that South Forest Beach Drive pedestrian signal down at the beach is very dependent on weather and what kind of beach day it is. If you ignore that significant decline crossing South Forest Beach Drive at Caligny Circle, we are only down about 4.5% from last year. And I wanted to further highlight that we are still much higher than we were 5 years ago in 2019, significantly higher, 46% higher with bike and ped crossings at our intersections than only 5 years previous. Okay, we analyze all of our signalized intersections according to the methodology that's outlined in the LMO. We have software that helps us do that, and it yields a result in average seconds of delay per vehicle that is highlighted at the bottom of your screen. Right above that, you'll see that there are averages for each approach, average delay per vehicle for each street approach, and above that, each movement also has average delay per vehicle. So the software outputs all of that. One thing it does not output is the percentage of capacity with the intersection, our other LMO goal. That is something that must be calculated by hand. And I would draw your attention to these two rows right along here that say adjusted flow rate and adjusted saturation flow rate. Those are ratios, capacity ratios for each individual movement. And directions on how to calculate your theoretical intersection capacity are outlined in the LMO, and this is a sample hand calculation. These are those ratios for certain high demand movements. The methodology tells you that you have to add certain numbers together and take the highest number. And then lastly, you multiply it by a factor that is a function of your signal cycle length and the number of phases that you have in each row going across. This example intersection was using 63.3% of its capacity. The results for the morning peak hour are outlined in Table 6 on page 16. There were no intersections found out of compliance with either of the LMO goals during the morning peak hour in July of 2024. The highest capacity ratio, unsurprisingly, in the morning was right here at 71% at the Squire Pope Road signal. The second highest, close second, was Gumtree Road at 70%. And the third highest is right here at Hooping Crane Way at 61%. As far as delay figures, the highest was Gumtree Road at 46.8 seconds of delay per vehicle. The second and third highest intersections were William Hilton Parkway with Matthews Drive North, and Pope Avenue with Cordillo Parkway, which came in at 28 and 27 seconds respectively, but everything in compliance during the morning peak hour. Figure table 7 on page 17 summarizes the results for the weekday afternoon peak period. Again, we found everything in compliance, save for our typical outlier, William Hilton Parkway at Squire Pope Road, which exhibited a delay figure that actually met the goal, but has a capacity figure of 99% of the intersection's theoretical capacity, rendering it non-compliant with the goals. And I will elaborate on that intersection more momentarily. Simply wanted to point out that the second highest demand to capacity ratio in the afternoon peak hour, surprisingly, occurred down here at Palmetto Bay Road and Arrow and Point Comfort Road, due to the number of people trying to travel off island on Palmetto Bay Road and the number of folks trying to turn right off of Arrow Road to join them. The highest delay figures during the afternoon peak hour, the highest one was at Gumtree Road at 53.4 seconds. That's very close to the threshold of non-compliance, but it was nonetheless compliant. The second and third highest were at Squire Pope Road and at William Hilton Parkway at Arrow Road on the south end. Sea Pine Circle, we counted it in July of 24 for the first time since visitor season in 2022. It was counted last 2 years previously, and consistent with the lower demands that we saw for many of our south end intersections during the peak hour. We also registered declines at Sea Pine Circle. The morning, midday, and afternoon peak hour were all generally down from 4 to 5.5% over the previous count in the summer of 2022. This is what an analysis of Sea Pine Circle looks like. And you'll note that while it does give you a value for the entire circle, it also gives you a value for each individual approach. And the LMO goal for roundabouts considers each individual approach. It says no approaches higher than 150 seconds per delay per average vehicle, unlike our signalized intersection goal, which is applicable to the entire intersection. Table 5 on page 14 summarizes the delay figures for each approach during each of the 3 peak hours at Sea Pine Circle, all in compliance. I would highlight, however, that 2 things. The highest for each of the 3 peak hours, the highest delay figure was recorded for Greenwood Drive compared with the other approaches, and that all of the figures are generally down. Delay figures are down from 2022, commensurate with the decline in demand that was recorded. Okay, William Hilton Parkway, Squire Pope Road, and Chamberlain Drive was out of compliance. And for a number of years, I'm going to conduct my remarks on this intersection as if there is no improvement project on the horizon, basically just from a standpoint of what needs to be done here. The largest amount of traffic that you can move through a lane that is unimpeded, think a lane on the interstate with not much traffic. You can get through about 1,800 vehicles per lane. That's about 1 vehicle every 2 seconds, because there's 3,600 seconds in an hour. So if there was no signal here and traffic just flowed through here, we could probably get about 1,800 cars per hour per lane off island in the afternoon. Once you put in a traffic light and start changing the signals and people start slowing down and starting from a stop, that breeds inefficiency that brings that number down to close to 1,200 vehicles per hour per lane. And if you really take some extraordinary measures like we have implemented here to greatly favor the major street over the side streets, you may be able to get that number up to about 1,400. That's kind of a realistic theoretical max if you really short the side streets and the turn arrows and don't give them enough time. Just try to keep traffic moving as much as you can. We had 1,320 per hour per lane during our afternoon count. That's very close to that theoretical 1,400 maximum, and well in excess of the 1,200 maximum that you would normally assign to a signalized intersection. So we're doing pretty good here, but for many years, the problem at this intersection and the reason that it is over capacity relative to the LMO goal is the availability of only 2 departure lanes in the off-island direction. And while the off-island traffic basically uses just about all the capacity that this signal can provide, in addition to the nearly 2,800 vehicles that we have trying to get off island through this intersection. And let me see here, I need to go back. There we are. We also have a tremendously high volume turning right off of Squire Pope Road. In the afternoon, that's about 400 vehicles per hour trying to make that right turn. And they just have a yield sign. They don't even go through the traffic light. They basically just have to sit at a yield sign and wait for an opportunity to go. That's a tremendous demand on any right turn movement. And to exacerbate conditions even further, we have a fairly high volume of 125 vehicles per hour trying to make the left turn onto Squire Pope Road. So the off-island flow that's close to what the signal can handle, and then you throw in hundreds of vehicles trying to turn right off of Squire Pope Road and turn left onto Squire Pope Road, that creates significant issues that cannot bring this intersection into compliance without significant improvements to the intersection to provide additional lanes. In making recommendations over what would mitigate this intersection, we looked at providing 2 right turn lanes on Squire Pope Road. That lowered the capacity ratio from 99% to 94%, but not below 90, so it did not mitigate the intersection. We looked at providing a free-flowing right off of Squire Pope Road that goes into an acceleration lane and merges back in further upstream. That does mitigate the intersection by better serving that 400 car demand turning right off of Squire Pope Road, but probably not a realistic improvement because of the impacts that it has to residential properties in Stony on the north side of William Hilton Parkway, that would basically be the same impacts as widening to 3 lanes. So in the past, that has not been seen as a feasible improvement. We looked at when you provide a 3rd lane off island, which in all likelihood can be foreseen in the future, it does fully mitigate the intersection, but effectively mitigating the intersection entails widening along the northern side of the road to the west of the intersection that impacts residential properties and will likely, those are impacts that are not likely to be implemented in advance of a widening of the roadway from 4 to 6 lanes. I will conclude my remarks on this intersection by stating that widening from 4 to 6 lanes, but once we have 3 lanes heading off island instead of 2, it is going to make that left turn onto Squire Pope Road even more difficult, having to turn across 3 lanes. And given the fact that we can only turn the arrow on for a very limited amount of time in the afternoon, It's been a safety issue for a very long time. We have a lot of collisions there, people turning left. And when you widen from 4 to 6 lanes, all things being equal, the typical response to that would be to take away the ability of that left turn to turn while yielding to oncoming traffic, and make it like the left turn signals at Gumtree Road and Spanish Wells Road, where you can only turn during the green arrow. Is that an ideal solution? Obviously not, because you're going to have to keep the green arrow illuminated a long time to serve that demand. So I continue to feel that the optimal solution here is a grade separation of that left turn movement, where the left turn rises up out of the median and crosses this town-owned land over here and comes up to a stop sign up there on Squire Pope Road. That would be basically an overpass that rises out of the median along here and flies over the off-island lanes and comes up here and goes to a stop sign. I realize that like widening to the west of the intersection, obviously that has some impacts that are very concerning to some folks, but continue to feel that that is an integral part in a long-term solution to this intersection. Appendix B in your report is simply the location of those 24-hour numbers that were presented in Table 1 earlier in the presentation. Appendix C, there is SCDOT has a real-time traffic counter on Jenkins Island that counts traffic in both directions all the time. These are the actual numbers for every day in 2024. Days that are greater than 10% of the annual average are highlighted in yellow. Days that are greater than 15% of the annual average are highlighted in orange. And days that are 20% higher than the annual average are highlighted in red. And we are right about in here right now. And this Appendix C, it also contains data on demands for the various days of the week, various months of the year, and our highest volume days of the year. I wanted to highlight that compared with 2023, the average daily demand decreased 1.3%. So if you look at the whole year 2024 versus the whole year 2023, we had 1.3% less traffic. We already know we had the highest volumes ever we ever counted for our visitor season snapshot that we collected last July. So the connotation is more traffic here during visitor season and lower traffic demands away from that. Also, Appendix D of your report is a Federal Highway Administration report, and it indicates that nationally, traffic demand was up 1.2% in July 24. Nationally, traffic was up 1.2% compared with July 23. However, in the South Atlantic region, which are these states right here, traffic declined 0.6% compared with a year earlier. But in South Carolina, it was up 1%. All of the states were down except South Carolina was up 1%. So your charge in the LMO is to receive this presentation and to forward your remarks or any recommendations to Town Council subsequent to your receipt of this presentation. No action on the presentation itself is indicated, but I would suggest that if you don't want to provide any supplementary remarks or recommendations to Town Council, you may want to just prepare a brief memorandum, forward it to Town Council, and say we don't have any results or additional comments or remarks or recommendations based on this report. It says in the LMO that Town Council will receive this report simultaneous with its presentation to the Planning Commission. that has been done. So I would suggest that there is not a need to forward the report itself on to town council. Simply any comments, remarks that you have on it. At this point, I'll be happy to entertain questions, and I'd like to ask Traffic Operations Manager Teresa McVeigh to join me up here up front. If you have any questions on the report itself, I can answer them, but Ms. McVeigh may actually be in a better position to answer questions regarding traffic and transportation issues on the island, generally speaking. So I'll take any questions, Ms. McVeigh and I'll take any questions.
Great, thank you, Darren. It was a very good report. If anybody who has read all the printed material that went out on this knows that there's another 60 or 70 pages worth of arrows going in every direction. So we appreciate your dialing this down to 19 slides. We are going to have a time for public comment, but let's find out what questions the commissioners have first. Commissioner Whaley?
Squire Pope question. So I'm glad to see that even though it's been years in the making, that we're going to focus on Squire Pope. Is that a fair assessment? Is that your recommendation to the town council? Or is that something you expect us to highlight if we pass it forward?
It is required that any intersections that are out of compliance be highlighted as part of this report. I've done so. In recent years, it's kind of been my habit to say, big SCDOT Beaufort County project is coming that's going to address all this. And I don't think I need to say a whole lot about it, given that some elements of that project has been scaled back. As I commented, I elected to just kind of ignore any upcoming improvements to the intersection and let you know what I thought about it this time.
So in following up to that then, would it be the role of the planning commission or within the roles and responsibilities of the planning commission to highlight that and say, you know, for example, we accept the report, we strongly urge the town council to make decisions with respect to Squire Pope quickly?
I suggest that any supplementary remarks or comments that you have on what it says about Squire Pope Road in the report should be put in writing and submitted to town council.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Cordes?
With the 26% increase in traffic after the toll was stopped, would it not make sense to do a Sea Pines traffic study every year? Also in light of what CSA is trying to do with the congestion at their gate?
Quite possibly. I indicated that the numbers seem to have, at least as far as the split between William Hilton Parkway and the former tollway, that split seems to have stabilized. But once again, over the last 5 years, we've seen an average 1.1% increase in traffic demand town-wide. And it's much more than that on the former tollway because of the increases that we saw following cessation of toll collection. You know, it's still in the LMO. It says Sea Pine Circle gets done in years evenly divisible by 5. We've been doing it every other year to go above and beyond. Certainly revising the LMO to require that it be counted and analyzed every year is something that could be considered as part of a future LMO revision.
Commissioner LeBeau.
You talked about the increase in traffic on the Cross Island and it had plateaued. And I'm curious if any analysis has been done on the green signs that are above the split of the language on there. Now, I realize that could be the state's requirement, but hopefully they would listen to some input from us. But when I look at those signs, it seems like the appropriate things were removed for the toll road and all that kind of thing. And I just wonder if there's anything that might be added to the language or the identification of places on the south end to encourage more people to take the Cross Island.
Would you take that one, Teresa?
I mean,
that's certainly something that we could look into and recommend to the state. Again, state-owned and maintained roads, the Cross Island Parkway. But we can definitely take that into consideration and submit that to the state.
Other questions or comments by commissioners? Let me find out, is there anybody from the public who would like to talk with us on this topic today? I don't see anybody, so. Yes, oh yes, Mr. Babel.
Thank you, Darren, for a great report. I'm speaking a little out of turn here, but, you know, there's one other road that we don't look at, but we're gonna have to look at for the next 30 to 40 to 50 years. Two lanes coming in, 2 lanes going off, and that's the bridge. It has no multimodal capability. It's 2 lanes each way. 40, 50 years, that kind of growth. Do the numbers. It would seem to be an appendix of what it is you're looking at. I know you're required to do this, but I know you look at it, but it's worthy of discussion in this kind of discussion, I would think, too. Just a thought. 2 lanes, that's all we got. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Okay, I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. As Darren has indicated, we can send this along to town council with comments or suggestions or other things that we would like, other than just approval in general. So what are we thinking? Commissioner Hens?
I move to approve.
We have a motion to approve the report, or second by Commissioner Lobo. Okay, is there discussion on the motion? All in favor of approval, then please raise your right hand. It is 7-0. Thank you. We have one more item here to take up concerning the changes in the LMO, and I'm going to have Missy come forward to do that for us.
Okay. So today, I wanted to discuss a request to actually postpone consideration of the proposed amendment to address mass and scale for both residential and commercial. But before you is, and included in the packet, is consideration of an ordinance amendment to address regulations for measurement of height and setback encroachments that's related to both residential and non-residential development. The reason why we would like to request that the Planning Commission postpone the hearing and consideration of the amendment is that when we were preparing our final analysis and review of this amendment set, we realized that the character overlay zoning districts needed to be included in the amendment set, and they were not noticed with the public hearing ad that was placed in the island packet. I can go through and give a broad overview of what this amendment covers, but just know that it is our recommendation that we do postpone this discussion for our next meeting in May. What would you like me to do? Would you like me to cover a summary of the amendment set?
Are we comfortable waiting till next month to get the full report with everything there? It seems like we are. Okay, so do we need to take action to postpone consideration, or?
Please do, yes.
Okay, could I have a motion to postpone consideration of this item until next month? Commissioner Lobo, seconded by Vice Chair Campbell. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. It is 7-0. Thank you. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak with us on something that was not on the agenda today, just in general? Yes, ma'am, either one. Hannah, will you be timing for me? Yeah. If you would state your name, please, for the record, and understand you'll have 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes.
I won't take that.
That's fine.
Linda Harrington, Indigo Run. My question for all of you is, what happened to the floor? The floor area ratio calculation that apparently was worked on extensively and it never came up before anybody. I would really appreciate it if someone would look into that before you change anything else. I'm not understanding why it's a very valuable tool to use in land management and growth, in housing becoming McMansions. No one wants that. So I guess my question to you all would be, A, did you know there was a FAR that's been discussed for quite a while? And B, what happened to it? So if anybody knows that, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else would like to speak with you? Yes, ma'am?
Hi, Katie Henderson, Hilton Head Plantation. Yesterday I was eating at Southern Coney and I went out onto Pope and then down South Forest Beach Road, which I don't do because I live in the north normally. And there were so many people walking and riding bikes on the road. Why is there not a pathway for bike riders on that road? I think that's really much more important than the bridge pathway. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wanting to speak with us? Okay, that will end the public comment section. There's no other commission business. I have no report. Are there any staff reports today? Don't see any. So any other business that anyone else has to bring before us? If not, we will stand adjourned.